Hi, this is Sid. I'm the CEO co-founder at GitLab, and this is our iteration office hours, where we discuss how we can combine our iteration value with projects and examples that are ongoing at the company. Katie, would you read the first case from Brett? Thanks, Brett, for the case.
Sure. In the AMA, you mentioned wanting to be SaaS first, which makes sense. And you want better reliability, usability, speed, and marketing. But that seems a little counterintuitive to iterating quickly, releasing somewhat bare features, and then iterating based on customer feedback. Reliability should always be there, but you typically sacrifice the other three to some extent. How do we achieve your vision and still iterate quickly?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. And as usual, our iteration value is not intuitive. That's why it's the only value we have office hours about. I do think that you can combine iteration with these things. So I'll go one by one and try to name an example. So usability. I think if you look at, for example, I think the menu structure, the project menu of GitLab can be vastly improved, especially the settings area. And I think if you look, we haven't made a ton of changes. We're not iterating. For example, you have in the general menu under settings are all kinds of stuff that is related to CI/CD that should be in the CI/CD menu. So I think their iteration would help to make it more usable. I think about reliability. I think that iteration reduces risk. So if you roll out smaller features, you make it easier to mitigate any adverse effects. The worst thing you can have is like you roll something out and you don't know what happens, or you have two things that compound. If you do things one by one, the risk is reduced. You have the same amount of changes going out, right? In the end, the apples to apples comparison is kind of the same amount of features and code going out. Would you rather do that all at the same time or one by one? I much rather do it one by one, because then I have one problem at a time instead of 100 problems at a time, which can interact with each other and makes it just harder to diagnose. And if I think about speed, I think speed is something that you definitely should iterate. Anytime I've been, as a programmer, faced with a performance problem, the first thing you do is start measuring, because a lot of things you thought would help don't really help. And a lot of times where you think it couldn't possibly get worse, you made it worse. So it's something where you want to be measuring and prevent any regressions. Brian, you have the next question. Thanks for that.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Sid. So my question was, as the organization scales and we pursue new certifications and come under like new regulatory requirements as we expand, how do you think we best embrace iteration without causing confusion for the overall team and frustration with kind of an ever-changing bar to meet? I think specifically of like in the handbook, we talk about two-way doors and reversing decisions. Also keeping in mind, I guess, that compliance and regulators generally dislike things that move quickly. And at times it can even feel like, why would we even change this process? Because the overhead and the frustration that's going to cause from a new compliance benchmark that we need to meet is just not worth it. And how do we manage that?
So far, regulators have impressed me with their ability to embrace iteration. And iteration at GitLab doesn't mean like you just do something and don't document it. In fact, we're one of the best documented companies in the world. And one of the big problems with being compliant is that your documents say one thing and you do the other thing. And that is what we're addressing by iterating. Like we frequently make updates. So yes, if you have a sign-off process with 17 people involved for something, your documentation is going to be out of date. And I think a lot of smart regulators can see the benefit. We went to some regulators recently, let's say financial regulators, and we were like, well, we have this whole handbook. Is it a liability? How do you think about it? They loved it. It's more public. It's better. It's that is, it should be a dream of any regulator to see how we work. So I think it's up to us to explain how that dream happens. And it's okay to kind of, like, for example, if people need to be in the loop, like if you need an approval, you can have an approval where you say, hey, all the changes that happened in the last month, let's review them. But that doesn't mean you didn't implement those changes during the last month, because we have to be responding to change constantly. And we can't have our documented process be something else than our real process. And that's what's happening at any company that puts a lot of roadblocks. So switch from approvals to periodic reviews when needed. Educate regulators, and they should be requiring other companies to work like us.
Appreciate that.
Are there any more questions for our public portion before we switch? No? All right, I am going to